Good morning, everyone. Sinead, are you going to kick us off there?
Good morning. Hello, and a very warm welcome to our second Client Care and Professional Standards CPD webinar. I'm delighted to see so many of our clients and in-house colleagues joining us today. First, just a little introduction to myself. I am Sinead Coonahan, Director of Knowledge at Mason Hayes & Curran. Our knowledge team works closely with our lawyers, supporting them in delivering clear, effective advice and helping our clients to make informed decisions with confidence. In particular, we look ahead to what changes are on the horizon that might impact our clients' businesses. In today's webinar, we will focus on the practical skills that underpin effective in-house practice, truly understanding client needs, and demonstrating impactful legal leadership, strengthening relationships and communicating in ways that enhance personal effectiveness and drive better outcomes for your organisation. We hope you will come away with some practical ideas you can apply immediately in your role. To keep this session as interactive as possible, please feel free to send in your questions at any time through the Q&A box, and we'll cover them after the presentation. Your CPD certificate will be available once you've completed our short webinar and business sentiment survey at the end. So now I'm delighted to welcome our speaker today, Amanda Zahringer, or should I say welcome back to Amanda, as she is a former partner at Mason Hayes & Curran. Amanda has served as a General Counsel, Executive Director, and now sits as an independent non-executive director and board chair. Amanda is widely recognised as a thought leader on leadership, influence and business strategy. She speaks internationally, lectures at the Law Society, the Irish Management Institute and the Financial Times. She's lived leadership from every angle, and today she'll be sharing lots of practical insights. So please welcome me in welcoming Amanda Zahringer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sinead. I think hopefully you will tell from my levels of excitement how proud and happy I am to be here with you today, all 622 of you. And again, it is, as Sinead was saying, it is so special to return to Mason Hayes & Curran because it's where I spent a significant part of my legal career, creating and leading a brilliant new function with the best people. And said, I think you can probably tell already that I'm really, really excited to be here. But also, as Sinead was saying, I have lived leadership and client care through every single lens. So as I said, for context, I've been a partner, a general counsel, and as Sinead was saying, I sit across several boards as a NED and as a chair. And so that perspective means I've seen from inside the transaction to instructing outside counsel to the view across the whole organisation globally. And with all that in mind, there is one truth. Leadership is the ultimate form of client care. And everything we're going to explore today really does come back to client care. However, as we know, especially as we're blessed enough to get older, whilst it ends with client care, everything starts with how we lead ourselves and our teams, and then that filters out to the client care. And again, there's a beautiful strategy pyramid that sadly we don't have time to go into today, but really the ethos is tone comes from the top, and here that means you. That's the standards we set in how we manage our energy, how we lead ourselves, how we communicate, and how we care for our teams that directly shape the experience that our clients have with legal. And I now love that legal has a seat at the table. We are imperative for great business. We're a key enabler. And today I really hope to lock that in. And most of you are already there. So as we move through these frameworks, let's look through the insights and with the lens of client care, absolutely. But please gift them to yourself first, then to your team, and then to your clients, because how we show up internally becomes a tone towards how our clients feel externally. And I'm able to say this through the lens of, I started my life as a corporate lawyer doing M&A in London and Madrid, and thankfully I ended up in Ireland, although I'm regularly in all different places. I worked those hideous, and this is not a badge of honour, and it doesn't happen at all anymore, 100-hour weeks. I went to work in the dark, came home in the dark if I left the office. In a way, we were very lucky because we had hotel rooms in the office. But to say it was challenging and I loved it and I'm incredibly grateful for it, it doesn't need to be that way. and later as an executive director at one of the largest banks in the world, where I still had as much workload, I managed to learn to lead in a completely different ways. So now I'm able to work strategically rather than operationally. And I'm a real adage, hopefully, how smarter than harder really, really does work. So that's what I want to share with you today, a few practical ways to lead and influence and achieve exceptional work without burnout. And it is entirely possible to be an exceptional, trusted strategic advisor and enjoy the work you do and to be truly fulfilled. So this hour is going to, and we're going to have 10 minutes for questions at the end. We'll give you frameworks to work easier and say smarter, not harder. It'll improve your influence, give you greater impact for you, your teams, and your clients. And as Sinead mentioned at the end, I want you to go away with exactly what you need today. So intentionally, there's Q&A at the end. So please, they'll come through anonymously. So absolutely ask me anything. My only job here is to serve you and to help you. So please put them in there. So the ask from me, and there are twofold. Firstly, the 738 of you now, please, please, please acknowledge yourself for being here. You are exceptionally busy. We're in November, which I'll come to. And by being here, you're showing a true commitment to yourself, your teams, your organizations, and your future. Secondly, remember the Anorak approach. I'm going to give you 4 or 5 key concepts. And I want all of you to go away with something you can implement or remember or a refresher easily that will have a real impact for you. So the Anorak approach, try the 4 to 5 methods on, see which one fits and suits you best, and just put the rest on the rack for when you need them. I want you to choose one idea that will have the most significant impact for you, remembering that consistent changes lead to absolutely remarkable results. So let's get started with what I call the shift. And this is a shift that all of the best GCs I know and work with, heads of department actually do, and rising stars are aiming for. So the shift is from expertise to influence and impact. And as I take you through these topics today, I want you to keep this shift in your mind and consider, where are you now in terms of what you deliver for your clients? Do you and your team, as standard, deliver expertise, influence, and impact? And if you do, just as importantly, visibility has value. Do your organization know the impact you're making? Now, technical excellence is an absolute baseline and a given. You're already gifted here, otherwise you wouldn't be on this call. What differentiates a modern in-house lawyer is influence and impact, which is ultimately commerciality, typically in the form of business results, and successful delivery of organizational strategy. So, as I mentioned, think of where we are now, and that is why it's so extraordinary you're here. It's November. We're all in the middle of absolute peak client demands. We're probably all doing our budgets, although at MHC, thankfully, we always did them before the 1st of November. If, like me, you're in board roles and you're on the board or reporting to the board, you're going to also be doing Q4 board decks. And you're going to be looking at your strategy in terms of how you finish for Q4 and what 2026 might look like for your org. And hopefully you do it for your legal department as well. So let's just take one more moment to acknowledge that you're actually here and to pause. I want you to remember that all of those things in November are actually real opportunities, because the lawyers who thrive are the ones who connect legal insight to strategic outcomes. And you can do that in all of those areas. From a board perspective, what stands out most is when a GC and their team are fully aligned, empower, and even enhance the organizational strategy. So as you're considering your Q4 strategic outcomes for legal, or creating your 2026 strategy for legal or the org, really keep this in mind. You are an absolute key enabler of the business. You are a key contributor to its success. And if strategy is relatively new to you, do not worry. It is absolutely like an oak tree. The best time to plant it and think about it was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. And we're going to cover a bit of that on this call. Now, this is a really important point. C-suites and boards don't deal in caution. They deal in confidence and clarity. And the most trusted GCs translate risk into board language. And later we'll always come on to, are you speaking the business's language? So think about, in terms of translating that risk into the board language, think reputation, resilience, and return. When legal does that, this shifts from can we to how can we, and that's leadership in practice. You know that you're in the realm of item 2, influence, and 3, impact, when your name, which becomes synonymous with solutions, which is one of my favorite phrases. For me, that's when we truly become a trusted strategic advisor. This is when you get invited into those rooms where the key decisions are being made and are always top of mind and the first person they call when both challenges and opportunities arise. So in terms of impact, a really simple example here. I know a GC that replaced the 15-page legal report with a 2-page strategic summary, what this means for the business. And don't forget, I am a lawyer as well. So of course, in the annex, it linked out to all the original detail. But think about that. That's the same advice, but 10 times the impact. And it's really important from the client perspective. Consider that title, strategic summary, what this means for the business. You're speaking the language of your client, your internal clients being the business, gaining credibility and buy-in, which is vital for your success. It's also a great example of working smarter, not harder. And another key thing here is they actually read the document. So just take a moment to see which of these areas, if any, you might already be delivering 3 as absolute standard. You might want to dial up and consider the impact it would have. And at the end, again, you might consider whether this is the one action item that you might like to take today. So today's focus, here is our framework. We've already discussed the shift from technical excellence to influence and impact, and most of you are already there. We'll then discuss those 4 leadership behaviors is item number 2 on the screen, then a brilliant practical influence model. Then we'll discuss the 4 C's framework, which is really everything we're discussing today. Then we'll come to clear practical takeaways, so you can get exactly what you need from today. And then we'll go to that really tailored Q&A, and genuinely, you can ask me anything. Everything is on the table. So let's come to those 4 pillars of leadership in client care. And these are really the behaviors that turn great lawyers into trusted leaders, and some of you, if you want, into future CEOs, if you're a deputy, into a future GC, a NED, a partner, whatever you want, this is the key differentiator. And the 4 pillars of leadership in client care or client service, and again, remember, if you're an MHCer, this could maybe how you service your client, but absolutely today is for you as in-house counsel. So these tend to be your business partners, different departments, and if you're lucky enough, like I used to have to, you actually might have to deal with clients in terms of complaints and different things. So it applies to all of them, just to remember which lens you're looking through. So the 4 pillars are understanding your clients, communicating with clarity, handling challenge with composure, and protecting your most valuable asset at all costs, trust. And we'll consider what each of these looks like in practice. Yet before we do, I really want to get to the heart of why this is vital for you, your teams, your clients, and ultimately your position and your career. So why does trust in client service matters? And I know you know this, but it's different for us as lawyers. Trust is the currency of our profession. And as you can see from the slide, clients buy trust before they buy legal services. So what does that mean? Absolutely, if you're a client going to a law firm, people will only call you if they trust you. Now, from an in-house counsel perspective, this is critical. Trust needs to be in place before they will come to you. Think of this as a business partner perspective. If you can co-create with them and they come to you first, this will save you so much time, energy, and expense. Do they trust you enough to have the conversation before something becomes a really big issue? As we know, trust creates loyalty, relationships, referrals, influence, and advocates. If you have a wonderful client or business partner, you want to keep them, and you do this through great client service. This is your key differentiator. If you're looking to increase headcount, which I know most legal departments are, if you want a promotion, or if you want to head up a really significant legal issue, you need great relationships, influence, and advocates And it's really, really important. And this is vital. It's like your network. You need to build this trust capital way ahead of time and way before you need it. And obviously, it goes without saying, with integrity and ethics always. Because remember, no matter whether you're newer to the profession or a GC, the legal shape the client experience every single day. Every email you send, every water cooler conversation you have matters. GCs, business partners, internal clients, external clients. In fact, all of us, in whatever we do, and I think about this in terms of my personal advisory board as well, what we're really looking for is not just technical skill, but people we can rely on, confide in, and partner with. No matter what level or role, you are shaping that experience every single day through emails, tones, or preparedness. When you become someone who strengthens trust at every single trust point, especially the difficult ones, touch points, sorry, you elevate yourself from a task doer to a trusted advisor. This isn't just about today's files. This is about your reputation and ultimately how people view legal. When you're a trusted advisor who gives exceptional legal service, you will be top of mind for all great work. And this will be for really exciting new business models down to times of crisis. You will be the trusted advisor on speed dial. And I can give you the perfect example from 6 weeks ago, and not just because it involves an MHC. I was in London on a number of matters, and on one of the boards I chair, there was a legal issue that had been bubbling away. And we've been scenario planning it, but we were sort of hoping that it would resolve differently. I got a voice note from my CEO to say it had actually gone a different way. And I want you to think through what was happening here. And one of the key items is it wasn't about the legal advice yet. Because as we say, technical excellence is always a given. In that moment, I knew exactly who I was going to call. And I called the head of department at MHC. And there are some brilliant things in here if you think of operational excellence and what happened, because I didn't get the person who I reached out to who was a trusted advisor. I left a voicemail, and yes, voicemail, I think it's probably the only place that is where it still exists. And within 30 minutes, I got a phone call from that person's EA. And they really kindly let me know that that person was on medical leave. Even better though, and think about how this has galvanized and deepened my connection with that set of trusted advisors. They'd already linked me up, knowing my personality, knowing my preferences, and knowing probably my ruthless level of excellence, who to pair me up with. 5 minutes after the call, and I'm not going to give the lawyer's surname away, but I do want to give them the credit here, Judith called me. And within 4 minutes, and we probably only have 4 minutes because I had to get on the Elizabeth line, it wasn't down to her, it was down to me. I had complete faith, trust, and if you think about it, I knew where we were going. She knew the business, she knew what the issue was, she gave us a pathway forward, but most importantly, I knew that I could leave it between herself and my CEO, and we had a great path forward. And there's a really great Maya Angelou quote here. People will always remember what you said. They will always remember what you did, but they will never forget the way you made them feel. So they'll forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, they'll forget the clauses, but how I felt after that call, I felt valued. I felt like the stress had completely alleviated, although I always know we can solve things, but I just knew that my CEO had someone brilliant who would help him come up with solutions. So that's really why trust in client service matters, because you will be the person they call. So before we return to the 4 pillars, there's a phenomenal quote that sums up why trust and client service are vital, especially in our profession. Trust is built in droplets and lost in buckets. Every single small moment, a thought, and especially the small moments, a thoughtful email. I'll let you into my personality and a window into my soul. An acknowledgement email is my absolute favorite. And my EA is brilliant. We text a lot and work that way. When she gives me the thumbs up and I know she's received it, again, think about how that makes you feel. So those small moments are actually not small. They're small moments with a big result. So think of the small moments when you're building that trust. An on-time delivery, a clear explanation. When someone comes and speaks to you, being like today, I have nothing else here. I have no other notifications, nothing can disturb me, and I hope you can feel I am entirely here for you. So those small moments of connection, a clear explanation, that on-time delivery, a thoughtful email is a droplet of trust. But an error, a bill, a missed deadline, a thoughtless comment will empty that bucket in an instant. And it's why consistency matters so much, which we'll come to later. GCs, clients, business partners, boards, ultimately, everyone will remember how you made them feel. And again, remember, your technical advice is a given. You're, the best in the country at what you do. So that's why I'm not focusing there. That's not what you need. The little things matter, and the best thing is they are entirely within your control. So please remember this as extraordinary MHC clients. I know that every single one of you already differentiates yourself here. So for you, and remember in thinking about leading self, leading your teams, and leading your clients, it's much more about keeping the promises to yourself, like not taking on too much work, being realistic with deadlines, having the right resourcing in place so you can flourish as a leader and your team can, and so can the organization. So can you see where you might want to look at this a little later? And we can do this through one of my favorite equations that I've mentioned, the trust equation. So now we've got the framing for why this is so important. Let's get into those 4 pillars in leadership and client care/service that turn great lawyers into trusted leaders. Seeking to understand, communicating with clarity, handling challenge with calm and composure, and protecting trust. Pillar 1, understand and then respond. And again, let me start with knowing I absolutely know the pressure you're under, especially at this time of year. I've actually been a sole GC for a global org with no support whatsoever. So trust me, I know how it can be. Yet, when you lead with curiosity in terms of seeking to understand, it is so much easier and you build true connection and you'll be able to add so much value to the business. But not only that, it genuinely makes your job more enjoyable. It's truly a win-win. Every team you advise, or I much prefer thinking co-create with, it's like the difference between leading with a control and command style and coaching. It's from advice to co-creating. When you're doing that, say with finance, product, compliance, risk, remember, just like us, and I know we have more pressure and priorities than anyone, but just like us, those departments also have their own pressures and priorities. So in terms of seeking to understand first, one brilliant GCI I worked with began by attending Monday's marketing meetings just for a short period of time. And again, it was the #1 department they were challenged by because of just so many requests. And what they did when they went to those Monday meetings was just to listen and understand their strategic objectives. And within weeks, they were preempting risks and approvals came faster. Again, it's about smarter, not harder. So I'd like you, again, you can choose whichever one that will work best for you, to think of an internal department or stakeholder who takes up most of your time. Then think about, do you know what their key drivers are? If not, could you ask? Perhaps you could have a quick conversation around what does success look like for them and truly listen. For finance, it could be predictability. For IT, it could be resilience without red tape, or again, knowing when their key projects are. And what you really want to do is understand their success metrics. You don't just give advice, you create a partnership. Commerciality really does begin with curiosity. So again, one option for you is you might want to try and schedule this month or just before the end of the year. I'll be kind today. I'll give you till the end of 2025. One quality curiosity conversation with a key stakeholder. And this is hard for us because we're always so outcome focused, with no agenda, just to understand. And I'll give you an example shortly of why this is so valuable and the ROI is excellent. And of course, as Stephen Covey says, it's seek to understand first. So that's in relation to your client, but it is also vital in terms of the org you lead. Do you truly understand what your organization is trying to achieve? Are your strategic objectives aligned with this? If you are not already in the room, could you attend the strategy meeting to ensure you are a key enabler of the business? If you're slightly less experienced, could you ask for the org strategy and then discuss it with your GC? your GC will think you're extraordinary because you are trying to align your work with achieving the organization's objectives. Now, another level of understanding, and again, I'm sure you are already there. So this could perhaps be for, if you're say 6 to 7 years PQE, maybe even more junior. And actually, I'm blessed in that I get to lead an advanced elective on the Law Society now. So for the advanced one, it's called Beyond the Brief, leading with purpose, performance, and profitability. And by the end of day one, all of those trainees can create a P&L. They understand how they feed into the business. So you might even be able to do this at an earlier level if you've been wise enough to come on that course. So as a GC, you are already likely financially fluent. And if you haven't done another course, it's something to really think about. If you are an aspiring GC, now is the time to start that journey. You really need to understand how you positively impact the bottom line. Do you know what your percentage spend of revenue is? Do you have a clear understanding of the commercials? Do you know your profit margin and the revenue of the business for the last 3 years? Is this increasing or decreasing? What does this mean for you in the org? So consider the contract you're negotiating. In financial terms, what percentage of revenue is this? And why do you need to understand this? This will help you to determine where everything sits in terms of resourcing and priorities. It's absolutely business critical that you have financial and commercial fluency. By truly understanding what's going on for your clients, you'll be able to ensure that you respond in a way that adds the most value for all. And as I've said throughout this, people ultimately want, it's from Dan's Pink research, to be seen, valued, and heard. The ROI, return on investment, given I say no jargon later, I better explain that. And I know most of you will know that. The ROI on a conversation where you listened wholeheartedly to truly understand them and their priorities with no agenda is extraordinary. I was with an incredible friend last week who works for a huge airline organization. And it was really, really phenomenal what happened here. We were having a chat over what was the biggest impact that they'd had this year. And this came about because of one coffee. There was a department that was really struggling to get in line, really needed some help with transformation. And all she did, again, one of the little big things, seems little, really big impact, was invite the head of that department for coffee. She was absolutely shocked by the response. In 20 years, no one from legal had ever reached out before to simply have a quality conversation. And that really, really shocked, but didn't surprise me because we're really busy. Again, it's a great example of going from operational to strategic. This one conversation was her biggest win because they built on it, and it has shifted their whole dynamic. So again, an invitation for later to consider the one thing you might want to take action on. Consider who could you have one quality conversation with to understand only before the end of the year. So in short, have quality conversations with key stakeholders to truly understand them and their priorities. Remember, as a given like with technical excellence, you must understand and empower the organizational strategy, the commercials, and the financials, because then you know how you can really have a significant play in that. Pillar 2, and I'm just going to give you a moment to note anything down. I have a lot of favorite equations that I think is becoming really clear. I'd say at the moment, because I always make room for different ones, that this is my absolute favorite and is absolutely pivotal for you. So pillar 2 is communicating with clarity. And the way we're going to look at this is through the trust equation. As a lawyer, being in professional services, this equation is critical. And this is ultimately to determine if someone is an exceptional trusted advisor. And if you want to look it up, it's Meister's trust equation. And it was a landmark framework developed by David Meister, and he's a globally respected expert on professional services. So it could be a good book for you to pick up if you haven't read it already. Why does it matter? And again, I'll come to this in a moment. See what I'm doing here. I'm helping you to see why this matters for you, and that's going to come into the next slide. Why does it matter? Because it breaks down something really abstract, yet vital, trust, into practical working elements that you can strengthen. Also, you can use it within your teams or like most of us have to do now. We're all in at the top, we collaborate, we don't compete. You're going to be starting to think about commercial partnerships. So this can help you to determine whether you can trust that commercial partnership. So here we're considering it in terms of communicating with clarity, because clarity is absolutely client care. Before we do, let's run through it. So at the top, you'll see there, trust is credibility plus reliability plus business intimacy. And don't worry, I'll go into that because I know that sounds a little bit strange, but think of it in terms of connection, divided by self-orientation. So let's break down each of those three elements. And you can think for yourself whether you're high or low in each of these areas. And said, I know you'll all be astoundingly high on the top three and very low on the last one, which is self-orientation. So credibility. This comes from what you know and how clearly you communicate it. In short, are you credible? This is your knowledge and your communication. Reliability, absolutely vital as a lawyer. It is about delivering what you promise every single time. And if you can't, you must communicate that early. And that will happen to all of us. And that's why the communication is key. Then you add business intimacy. And really think about this in terms of human connection, approachability, empathy, and if you're discreet. Also, this for me is, do you really care? Do you remember a conversation we had about my niece? I've got a great example. Her name's Amber. And if you remember that later and bring it to conversation with integrity, that will really build your business intimacy. It's about human connection. Now, you add all those three along the top, and then you divide it by self-orientation. And that's really about focus. Are you truly focused on helping the client, or perhaps proving yourself, or just getting things done? The lower your self-orientation, the higher your trustworthiness is. And this last factor, really for legal more, this is where communication often breaks down, and it's only because you might not have thought of it in this context before. So hopefully today, this will really help. And I think about where one of my biggest growth opportunities was. And I remember with a CFO, he came to me and said, Amanda, I don't need more detail, I need more meaning. So what we started to do, and I was going to say one lawyer, but it was actually me, is I started leading with my advice with, here's what it means for the business. And they came afterwards and asked me, because they found it so valuable, if they could start forwarding the notes directly to the CEO. Imagine what that did for my credibility. So to make this real, a really quick practical exercise for you. I want you to bring to your front of your mind right now someone you trust completely. Or if you like, I don't like doing things on the negative side, but it can be really useful, someone you really don't trust. And I want to unpack as the trust equation why you do. And so for me, let's think of Sinead who opened this call. If I could give her 120 out of 100 for trust, why would I? And if you could work through this, and it's why it was extraordinary working with Sinead and the rest of the MHT team. Think about the credibility there. She is an SME. Reliability in our 6 years of working together, reliability was extraordinary, probably too high. And I hope she's blushing, to her personal detriment sometimes. If you needed something done, they say ask a busy person, and reliability was extraordinary. Business intimacy. I still remember the outside of the work moments in terms of the fun we also got to have and the way that we got to work together. And that really matters. And self-orientation, I've never met anyone with self-orientation so low and could probably do with dialing it up a bit as well. So as you're thinking the person you trust completely or someone you struggle with, have a think. Where are they really strong? Where is there a gap? And then reflect. And so now you know how it works because you've done it through the other person. Think about yourself and your legal team for your clients. Can you apply this lens to client interactions and relationships with your colleagues? This isn't just a theory, this is a tool to sharpen your self-awareness and to accelerate your growth as a trusted advisor, which means people cannot do without you. Bringing this into your daily practice helps you go beyond the brief and stand out as a lawyer who genuinely earns client loyalty, long-term influence, and relationships. So think about yourself and your legal team. Are you credible? Are you great with your communication? Do you do what you say you do? Do you really know your business partners and clients? and in terms of self-orientation. Is it the organization first, the department first? Just something to think about. So, what's in it for you when you communicate in a way? Again, think about this, what's in it for you, because we'll come on to that on the next slide, that aligns with this. You'll get clear, concise communication that builds confidence. You will, one of my favorite things, reduce your workload. You'll be in a position as a commercial partner, not just a legal counsel. And again, you'll get to work smarter, not harder. So if we think of this in terms of practical client service, how can we build trust at every opportunity? So this is continuing pillar 2. This is about communicating with clarity. And so let's talk about intentional influence, which is the art of shaping, understanding, emotion, belief, and action. And here is a great checklist for you. The more intentional you become before you make the phone call, create a deck, or send an email, if you note down the thinking, feeling, knowing, and doing for the individual recipient before you send it, and then check in after to ensure it aligns, you will get extraordinary results. So think about writing, and I can now do this in 30 seconds and I don't even need to write it down. Let's say you're doing a pitch deck for the board. Afterwards, before you start it, the thinking, what do you need them to understand? What do you want them to think? What do you want them to feel? Do you want them to feel empowered, ready, or able to say yes? Knowing what they need to know about you, the issue, the risk, or the opportunity. Doing what do you actually want them to do and why? And you need to be really clear on that. The return on investment here is exceptional, and it will become second nature because it's twofold. You are setting yourself and your recipient up for true success. It brings clarity, which brings benefits to everyone, but also from a neuroscience perspective. Because you've written this down, you've then done the comms and checked back into it. You are actually programming yourself for success. You will start acting in a way that aligns with the outcomes you want subconsciously. So again, you'll be working smarter, not harder. So again, let's bring this to life straight away. Think of the current conversation with a stakeholder that you need to have, and likely, like I used to, have been putting off. It could be those budgets with finance, it could be HR for a new hire, or it could be your CEO and strategy. Now, ask yourself, have I addressed what I want them thinking, feeling, knowing, and doing after our conversation? If not, that might be something you do before you next meet them. Also, I want you to think about what the impact you would have if you did. So then this might be the small call to action afterwards. So I am going to fly through the rest of this checklist because you're all super smart and absolutely understand this. If you just do the thinking, feeling, knowing, doing, you will change the way you communicate. Yet, because you are also brilliant and the best at what you do, I want to give you 3 extra things that you just to bring it in. The WIFT, the what's in it for them. People only care about, and let's go with human behavior rather than against it, what threatens, benefits, or affects them. So make sure in any comms, whether it's a talk, a phone call, or whatever, you get across why they should care, why they should listen, what's the benefit for them. As you'll see later, primacy and recency. People remember the first thing you said and the last thing you said. So whether it's in a business case, make sure the first sentence and the last sentence are powerful and emotive. Then think about your success factors, the person in front of you. When do they love to have a conversation? Is it the morning or afternoon? I want you setting it up for success with the individual in front of you. Think about how they like information. Do they want a quick call? Do they want you to be on Zoom? How will they take it in best? So, whilst these are exceptional frameworks, thinking, feeling, knowing, doing, making sure you're covering off the what's in it for them, primacy and recency, really strong open and close, success factors. When would I communicate them, which would give me a higher chance of success? How should I communicate with them as well? It's really, really important to remember that meaningful influence happens when we speak to the whole person in front of us with integrity. So please absolutely use the frameworks. But again, as with that trust equation, it's really important, and I know you will do it with integrity, because there are lots of ways of doing things that actually I really, integrity and ethics are obviously incredibly important to all of us but they're very strong for me. It's really important that you do it with the right energy and ethos. Pillar 3. This is how to handle challenge with composure. This deserves its own whole hour session, yet given the senior levels you're in, I just want to, if you're having a challenge with here, I just want to give you some really good takeaways, because challenge defines credibility. And actually, a team and client relationships can be galvanized and deepened when we handle them with empathy and composure. I remember a CEO storming into a GC I was working with, absolutely furious about compliance delays. And because they worked on how to do a pattern interrupt. Instead of defending, the GC paused and tapped into positive intent and curiosity and asked, what outcome do you need right now? So it's a stroke of brilliance, and there's situational awareness there as well, because you do different things depending on the situation. They asked a great question. That CEO spoke as quickly as I do for 5 minutes straight without a breath. The GC also bought themselves time by just mentioning, I'm just going to turn the screen off and my phone off so we can solely focus on this conversation. So think about what that did also. That bought the GC time to self-regulate, to close the door, whilst also making that CEO feel seen, valued, and heard. And in this situation, that GC just wanted to be listened to. That tension dissolved immediately, and over time, they built a faster compliance process together. And brilliantly, they actually used it to get the GC the headcount they'd already wanted, always wanted. So it's a real win-win. When you have a situation, remember situational awareness. Instantly ask yourself the specificity of that situation. What does this situation need right now? And attune to that. So for example, you might need to ask a quality question. You might want to use permission to pause. Always give yourself permission to pause. Or use a great holding phrase. Giving yourself permission to pause, and I wish I learned this earlier in my career, probably only learned it about 10 years ago. This will actually gain you credibility and will make much better decisions long-term for you, your team, and the organization. When emotions rise, which they absolutely will, and we can't avoid that and we shouldn't try to, this is actually an opportunity to deepen your relationships. It's really about consciously and actively taking that breath. And in fact, there's a science called emotional contagion. What you'll be doing is also calming that person down. So a couple of examples are, let me take that away so I can think this through for you. Or let's pause for a second so that I can give you the clearest answer. Those sentences are holding phrases and they prevent you from reacting. Remember, we always respond and don't react. And again, think of that trust equation. They signal control, calm, and confidence, just what you'd expect from a trusted advisor. And again, remember, every single moment of challenge is actually an opportunity to reinforce trust. When we stay steady, our clients feel safe and they think we're calm, we're okay. Think of me getting onto the Elizabeth line. Speaking to Judith, I knew everything would be okay. And you don't have to fix everything instantly. And in fact, the worst thing to do is when we try to. There's always, especially if you're on a call with a client, when you think you can't step away, that's the time you must. You can always take 5 minutes away from your desk. So remember things and quick resets you can do. Pause, breathe, and lower your tone by one level. I love the acknowledging without agreeing, because it's really important. Whatever is going on for this person is really going on for them. So you can say something like, I can see this matters. Let's work out the next steps together, or what's driving this. Or you can do the reframe, which, if success looked like X, would that solve that? And remember, composure isn't coldness. It's really clarity under pressure. And just on there, if this is a space you want to look into, I only, with lots of my clients, I try to give them really bespoke resources. But for me, I only use 5 sign-up newsletters. There's a brilliant trial attorney called Jefferson Fisher. And if you want to build your skill up here, and he'll give you lots of brilliant holding phrases, I really do recommend signing up for that. Again, it's smarter, not harder. You don't have to look for it and it'll come to your inbox for you. So finally, in a really, really tense moment, which happens to us all, ask yourself, am I about to add fuel or create clarity? And if it's the former, which can happen, be sure to make a smart, elegant exit. It is absolutely fine to say, just one moment, I'm just going to grab a glass of water, because everyone will thank you for taking those 2 minutes to compose yourself afterwards. And this is how you respond rather than react. And I don't have to say, but I might for more junior people, never ever send the email in anger. Just don't do it. And we've all done it, but just don't do it. Because this is really an opportunity, again, to build trust. Calm, connection, and composure will give you that credibility. So I'm just looking at the time here, and we're going to go on to that final pillar, which is consistency is a key protector of trust. Consistency is the quiet power of leadership. And if you want a brilliant resource in this area, and I'm sure most of you have read it, James Clear, Atomic Habits. It's not about perfection. It's about reliability over time. We often think competence is about technical brilliance, but it's actually not. It's about consistency. People trust what they know what people trust when they know what to expect, that steady tone, thoughtful judgment, and follow through. And connection must be sustainable. Excellence without sustainability is exhaustion, and trust me, I've been there. And so I'd like you to take a moment today to consider if you've put yourself in a position to be consistently excellent for yourself, your team, and your clients. Again, your small call to action here might be to fuel yourself better here. Your clients and your colleagues need you clear-headed and dependable, not depleted. And when I was a GC, I noticed, and the responsibility was totally on me, one of my team members' performance had dipped, not because of a lack of skill, but lack of fatigue. We were reacting rather than anticipating, so we built sustainable systems, playbooks, deep work blocks, handover notes, and probably my biggest achievement in-house was automated self-service NDAs so the business could serve themselves, things that preserved and enhanced both quality and well-being. I think competence today is about building frameworks that outlive that individual effort. So practical check-ins. What's one recurring task that you can delegate, automate, or time block? Can you, and yes, you can, and you should, replace heroic effort with reliable process? How can you model sustainable pace for your team? And those micro habits really, they demonstrate professional maturity and build psychological safety. When your team see you managing your own capacity well, they learn that consistency, sustainability matters more than overextension, and confidentiality and trust thrive in that item. So consider what one item, if you addressed it, would have the most impact for you, your teams, and your clients to fuel consistent excellence. What benefits would it bring to everyone? And what's the smallest step you could take to bring that to life? So those are the 4 pillars of leadership under client care. Understand your clients, communicate with clarity, handle challenge with composure. Trust is your most valuable asset. And just in case we have any rising stars on the call, I have included in the next 3 slides some of the basics around the A to Z of client service. And next week, I'm very happy. We were just talking about this in terms of AI. Normally, I don't circulate my slides anymore because I have seen them word for word come up online. Yet, given that you are who you are, I'm very happy to circulate them later. So this is for you as a checkpoint later if you're newer to the legal world, or if you're a GC and just want to check if you have very similar views, or you might want to just use of these. So they're defining client service, the golden rules of client service, mini client service KPIs, and what top clients notice. So what we've been discussing today can all be summed up by the 4 C's framework. And again, this can be a really good touch point that you can have on your desk or somewhere. What we're really talking about always is clarity, connection, credibility, and commerciality. And that is how your name becomes synonymous with solutions. On one of my boards, one of my GCs is a phenomenal strategic translator. They turn ambition into risk-aware execution. And when legal fully understands the business strategy, it really empowers the organizations to move forward faster and more safely. And that's the moment your name becomes synonymous with solutions, not problems, not delays, not caveats, but solutions. And for me, that's the biggest compliment that a lawyer can ever earn, and it's leadership in its purest form. So, key takeaways before I hand back to Sinead for some questions. And this is what we've really been talking about. Client care is leadership in action. Every time you listen first, communicate clearly, stay calm under challenge, or deliver consistency, that's leadership. That's how trust is earned, by title, not behavior. Simple, not easy. I know it is simple, but not easy. So start small, start now. And remember that transformation doesn't come overnight. It's from intentional micro movements. So choose one insight from today, one conversation you'll handle differently, one relationship you'll reset, one small shift. Use the 4 pillars. Understand first, because curiosity is commerciality. Communicate with clarity, because clarity is client care. Handle challenge with composure, because remember that calm is contagious. Consistency builds trust, because steady performance creates safety and credibility. Lead with those 4 C's: clarity, simplify complexity so others can act. Connection, understand people's pressures and priorities. Credibility, deliver reliably, follow through every single time. Commerciality, see beyond the legal issue to the business outcome. And number 5, and this is actually the number 1 for me because I said our technical brilliance is a given. People will always remember how you made them feel. So be that trusted advisor. They will forget the clause, but they will remember how you made them feel. And be your own trusted advisor too, because it all starts with you. So the invitation, take something from today. You are 80% more likely to achieve something if you write it down, tell someone, and take the smallest action within 72 hours. So please take one small action. It will lead to remarkable results. And if you want, I'm very happy if you want to DM me. I always love hearing how it's a little catalyst for success, and I'm delighted to hear that. So finally, given we spoke a little bit about primacy and recency, everything we've talked about today, clarity, composure, consistency, care, starts and ends with one thing, which is intentional leadership. So I just want to leave you with that thought. The legacy of a leader is trust, earned quietly, kept consistently, and remembered long after the work is done. And the greatest legacy for me that any of us can leave is to be trusted, not just for what we do, but for how we do it. So thank you so much. It has been a pleasure to share this session with you and to be an honorary MHCer again. I'm going to hand you over to Sinead, and because we have a couple of minutes for maybe 1 or 2 questions, and I know she has some housekeeping items too.
Thanks very much, Amanda. Some great insights there. Trust is built in droplets and lost in buckets. That is so true. And thanks for your kind words. You did, in fact, make me blush, and the same could
Excellent.
absolutely be said for you. So, just turning to a couple of questions. Firstly, we've had a couple of requests for the name of the book you mentioned by David Meister, I think it was.
Yeah, so it's the trust equation. So it's we are going to circulate only because I trust you. Notice the level of trust. What I will do, because again, with clients, it's always about delivering more value is, and I normally put it on the last slide, is I will include all the 3 books that I mentioned and a link to each of them, and then that will go out with the slides. So look at us adding value there. So I will do Meister's trust equation, Jefferson Fisher, just in case you want it now, James Clear, Atomic Habits, and anything else I mentioned. So I'll make sure that they come out in links to everyone on the call.
Great. Thanks, Amanda. A couple of great questions here. Do you have any tips for how to share this message with our teams to encourage them to think strategically and focus on the impact that they can have in the business as they build their expertise?
Absolutely. So it's all the cascade. So if you think about it, so bring it into everything you do. So every legal department should have a business plan. You should be talking through the organizational strategy. There's a session I do on strategic focus and alignment, which is exactly this. So carve it through everything. So it should go through the start of every single quarter or week. What are our 5 strategic objectives that will empower the business? And then in terms of the work they're doing, everything should be aligned with that. You can also, now I don't love this, but it should go through everything, is track it through in terms of performance. But the most important thing, and we do it on that advanced elective, is they will attach to it and deliver more if they know that they have a responsibility in it. So if you can bring this home to them, we're doing this because you're a key driver and this is what will happen. So just to summarize, bring it through everything you do. Make sure everyone in your team actually understands the business strategy. Make sure that legals has aligned strategic objectives. Bring it into every weekly meeting. And why I love this, so I did a talk for EcoSem on International Women's Day. And I can remember off by heart because it's such a good vision statement. They are decarbonizing the global cement industry. So that's their vision. And so every single decision their legal department make is this moving us towards that or away from that? So if you ensure that your legal department know and live the vision, every single piece of work is a decision point. It's like NASA putting a man on the moon. Is this moving us towards that or away from that? So help them live, breathe, understand the strategy, but also it's really important that they can demonstrate the return on the investment. So when we did the NDAs, we could show that it saved 70 legal hours a week, or that it tracked through to the bottom line. So cascade it through everything, weave it into everything, and also ask people, so you've got these 5 strategic objectives, which would you like to own? And then they will run with it. And this might sound very familiar, Sinead, from when we used to do our strategy days in our department.
Absolutely. Um, Next question. How would you suggest handling relationships with leadership where questions remain unanswered or ignored?
Oh, I would always go to the why. So if it's always what is the driver, and that is a brilliant question, and thank you. And what is going on? So I would again individualize. I think about that person and their perspective and what might be going on for them. And depending that situational awareness on what was going on, I think that's not an email. An email is the worst form of communication ever. Get on the blimmin' phone, get into a meeting. I would go off site. It completely depersonalizes things. Think about things from their perspective. Have an open conversation. It's called heaven and helling, which I don't love, but ask them what their biggest challenges are, and then really understand the impact on them. Ask them the heaven, what would be an extraordinary result for you? And then you're really understanding the challenges and the opportunity. Then frame your question in terms of your question, make that the bridge from really tricky situation. This is really hard. This is where I want to be. Your question is, could this be the bridge to do it? So if you break that down into 3 elements, what would set you up for success in terms of communicating with that person? Get off site if that's what they like to do. Have a genuine connected conversation on what's really going for them, and then bring it in with integrity. And I would that is the ethical backbone. You've got to have those conversations and lead with, and again, the energy you bring is so important. And I've had to train myself to this because it's not natural within me. Lead with positive intent, genuinely going and thinking that they are trying and doing their best. People genuinely are trying, and it might not be what we think, but everyone comes to work and tries to do their best. So lead with positive intent and lead with curiosity. Leave any assumptions at the door.
Thanks. That's totally true. And I wish we had more time for questions and to continue this conversation. And apologies if we didn't manage to get to your questions. Thanks to everybody for your questions and for listening. And thank you to Amanda for your excellent presentation today. I've definitely taken away some nuggets, that's for sure. Just a final reminder to everyone that your CPD certificate will be available once you've completed our short webinar and business sentiment survey at the end. Thank you so much for joining us. And as ever, if you have any specific questions, please contact the team to find out how we can help. And please do check out our upcoming and recent webinars at mhc.ie/events. Thank you so much. Thanks, Amanda. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.